This is Europe in the 28th century. Smallpox is everywhere, and 400,000 Europeans are dying from it each year. Smallpox was a contagious and miserable disease. On average, 3 out of every 10 people who got it died. People who survived usually had scars which were often severe. Smallpox is a contagious disease caused by the variola virus. Early symptoms in smallpox include high fever, fatigue, and severe back pain. It sometimes was also associated with abdominal pain and vomiting. After contracting the virus, about 3 days later, the virus produces a rash with bumps full of clear liquid. The bumps then later fill with pus and fall off. The rash begins on the face and hands, and lesions later develop in the mucous membranes of the nose and mouth. To have this disease was a death wish, as most people who contracted it died. Smallpox is believed to have appeared around 10,000 BC in northeastern Africa. It is most likely that it spread from there to India and then the rest of the world. Early evidence in skin lesions resembling smallpox is identified on the mummified head of Egyptian pharaoh Ramses V. Smallpox was introduced to Europe sometime between the 5th and 7th centuries and was a main epidemic during the Middle Ages. It also affected Western civilization and its developments. The disease was introduced to the New World by Spanish and Portuguese conquistadors. It decimated the local populations and led to the decline in the native populations. This letter is from the Secretary of War on the subject of smallpox among the Indians, January 2, 1839, laid before the House by the Committee on Indian Affairs, referred to said committee, and ordered to be printed. The Cherokee Indians, Chickasaw Indians, Choctaw Indians, Creek Indians, and Seminole Indians asked Congress to recognize the deaths among their populations. Smallpox affected all classes and levels of old society. It was known as the speckled monster in the 18th century England.
The dreaded disease. Throughout Britain, as we go to press, smallpox has killed 6 people. Wisely, Bradford responded with vaccination. Already 100,000 in that city have been treated at emergency clinics. Vaccine for a further 100,000 has arrived. St. Luke's Hospital was isolated.
Smallpox infected people seasonally for over a century and killed nearly 1/3 of those who contracted the disease. The solution to this problem came from physicians in Africa and the Middle East. They believed that a person might be purposely infected with the disease to stimulate immunity. Efforts to protect against smallpox stemmed from that idea. However, then came Edward Jenner. As early as 430 BC, survivors of smallpox were called upon to nurse those who were afflicted. During medieval times, many herbal remedies as well as cold treatment and special cloths were used to either prevent or treat smallpox. Dr. Sydenham treated his patients by allowing no heat in the room, leaving the windows permanently open, drawing the bedcloths no higher than the patient's waist, and administering 12 bottles of small beer every 24 hours. Edward Jenner was an English physician and scientist who is best known for developing the world's first successful smallpox vaccine. Jenner was born in Berkeley, England, and he trained as a physician. His interest in the prevention of smallpox was sparked by his observation that milkmaids who had been infected with cowpox, a disease similar to smallpox but much milder, seemed to be immune to smallpox. In 1796, Jenner conducted an experiment that would lay the foundation for the smallpox vaccine. He took material from a cowpox sore on a milkmaid named Sarah Nelms and inoculated an 8-year-old boy named James Phipps with it. After Phipps recovered from the cowpox infection, Jenner exposed him to smallpox, but the boy did not develop the disease. This experiment demonstrated the protective effect on cowpox against smallpox.
In this disease, the antibodies dispose of the germs, probably without the help of white cells. In a capillary tube like this, and applied directly to the skin from the tube.
Jenner continued his research and coined the term vaccination, derived from the Latin word vacca, meaning cow. to describe the process of using cowpox to immunize against smallpox. His work laid the foundation for the development of vaccines and the field of immunology. The success of Jenner's smallpox vaccine eventually led to the widespread vaccination efforts, contributing significantly to the eventual global eradication of smallpox in 1980. Jenner's work is considered a landmark achievement in the history of medicine and has had a lasting impact on public health. Thomas Jefferson to G.C. Edward Jenner, May 14, 1806. The first vaccine, smallpox, had many short and long-term impacts. Jenner's work eventually led to widespread production and commercialization of the smallpox vaccine. Successful use of the smallpox vaccine led to the gradual reduction of smallpox cases. The last U.S. wild smallpox case occurred in 1949. After intensive vaccination campaigns in the 1960s and 1970s, the last case of wild smallpox in the world occurred in 1977. Because of Jenner's discovery that injecting one disease to protect against another, many other vaccinations were started to be created. These included, in 1796, the smallpox vaccine. 1880, Louis Pasteur introduced the rabies vaccine. Early 1900s, introduction of toxoid vaccines, diphtheria and tetanus vaccines, and the cultivation of viruses on the chorioallantoic membranes of chick embryos, and the development of the influenza and yellow fever vaccines. 2006, HPV vaccine. 2019 Ebola vaccine, and in 2020 the most recent major health scare to the world in which a vaccine saved millions of lives, the COVID-19 vaccine. Although vaccines have become widespread, thanks to the work of Edward Jenner with smallpox, some people are still very skeptical about them. Many parents and patients themselves refuse vaccines for religious reasons, personal beliefs, or philosophical reasons. Safety concerns like getting sick from a vaccination, or even the desire to know more about what they are putting in their body. In a special October issue of the scientific journal Vaccine, researchers from around the world presented their studies on why some people are hesitant to get vaccines or are completely anti-vaccination. Many parents are hesitant to give their kids vaccines because the information online is mixed. Internet search engines often bring web users to low-quality anti-vaccine websites. In a 2017 study, vaccine misconceptions were found all over Twitter. The researchers suggest that targeted vaccine safety campaigns that use insights gathered from these Twitter posts could help to share vaccine facts rather than vaccine myths. Many other people believe that getting vaccinated could cause other major health issues. Using results from a 2010 health style survey, many parents report thinking their children will develop disabilities from getting vaccinated. There's also the main reason so many don't get vaccinated, for religious reasons. They think it's unnatural, unhealthy, or in some cases found by a survey at Christian schools in New York, it could cause abortion or miscarriage. Now in the 21st century, as the world is still facing one of the most deadly diseases to ever occur, COVID-19, people refuse to get vaccinated. As two anti-vaccination people who have survived COVID state, it's my choice. If I get sick, I'm hurting no one but myself. The vast majority of people infected with COVID have survived. I'm willing to take the chance. In an interview we did with Mary Jo, a volunteer at Foothills Community Hospital, she states her opinion on vaccines and why they matter. Why Dr. Jenner's original discovery was so important. This comes from a local member of the Boulder community. She says,
Why do you think vaccines are so important?
Well, because of the epidemics in the past, with polio and stuff, people ended up being disabled.
Yeah.
And, I personally think vaccines are really important and, to prevent the spread of the diseases, chickenpox, mumps, measles.
Overall, Jenner's discovery made strides in the scientific world and was a major turning point in healthcare, changing the way people think about staying healthy and protecting themselves from getting sick.